One of the things that's common to a lot of people in the enterprise tech space is the hacker ethos that says, I want to build something, I want to create something, I want to share something with the world, and I'm thrilled when other people are leveraging my work in their work. Whether it's open source programming or getting involved in organizations or working with home 3D printers and things like that. I'm Stephen Foskett from Gestalt IT, and I'm here at Storage Field Day meeting up with some of the delegates and hanging out. And I wanted to introduce you to Erik Ableson, and let's talk a little bit about some of these other hacker projects. Welcome, Erik.
Good to be here, as always fun. And I'm having fun these days with the new distraction with playing with 3D printers has been an ongoing one. And lately I have been delving into CNC work, which is getting back to some roots of things that were taught to me by my dad way back when in a workshop in the basement, and discovering the CNC stuff because I'm useless at carving and any of this fine kind of work. But it's so cool to be able to design something on a screen and then take it to a machine that will transform a basic piece of wood into something that could be interesting, useful, beautiful, and otherwise unobtainable to me with my hands the way they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I also have a 3D printer that I love to play with. Both of us also have laser engravers. You know, we've tried a lot of this stuff. And of course, like I said, I see a very smooth connection between the world of 3D printing and the slicing and all that software that runs it, all the monitoring and the IoT space, and then you've got sort of, you know, your Arduinos and your ESP386s and your Raspberry Pis and all that kind of stuff. I feel like that's all part of a continuum. And absolutely, it's so rewarding to be able to look at your screen or look at the world around you and say, I need a thing that goes right there and is kind of that size. You know, you measure it, you put it in the screen, you kind of make it happen. And then a few minutes or an hour later, you're holding that thing in your hand, and it's pretty cool. So tell us a little bit about your workflow. You know, you need a thing. How do you do it?
A lot of it depends. The simplest workflow is leveraging the existing work that so many people out there have done on various sites. You've got printables.com, Thingiverse, Yegi, the list goes on, of people that have built something for themselves, and oddly enough, a million times people out there have exactly the same problem. So if it's a replacement part for something silly like a coffee machine or whatever, you can go out and find those pieces really easily. And then sometimes you run across the problem that it's not out there yet, so it's up to you to build it. And I have found a wonderful little application called Shaper 3D that runs on the iPad, and now they've got versions for other operating systems. But the cool part for me, whatever it is, working on the iPad with this program and the Apple Pencil gives me a level of precision, and it feels like I'm just drawing this thing in 3D, and then the net result is I can take that, take it back to the computer, and run it through a slicing program to give me a 3D print, or something else to be able to take it into a carving type of operation. But the best part about it is just that fascination of being able to start with an idea, a pair of calipers, a little piece that might be broken, and measure it all out, put it together and draw it in the system, and then print it out and see what happens.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? And of course, the printers themselves are not, you know, exactly, they're not really pre-made. I mean, a lot of the time you basically are kind of almost building your own, kind of like you would build your own PC in some ways. Sometimes it's a kit, sometimes it's really something that you're kind of putting together yourself. But if you kind of look outside the bed and the extruder, there's a lot of things that people do to their printers, you know, whether it's, you know, oh, I'm going to add a heated bed, or I'm going to add a camera system to monitor it, or I'm going to work on the filament feeding solution, or, you know, there's a lot of hackerness that's going on there. And yours also can be swapped out for a CNC, right? So tell us about the printer.
So the bigger one that I'm using right now, on top of a little Prusa Mini, which was my gateway drug to getting into this, is the Snapmaker. It was the 2.0 version, and I got the biggest one I could, which has a 30 centimeter cube workspace, which is so much larger and lets me do so many more interesting things with it. But it's neat because they've got this ability to take the tool head, the 3D printer tool head, disconnect the cable that goes into it, unscrew it, and put a CNC head or a laser cutting head on it, and then you can just do different stuff. And the good news is, last week I just received the brand new Quick Swap kit because the original version wasn't very well thought out and required taking out about 24 screws to unmount the bed from the printer and then swap it with the CNC bed, and it was just a whole lot of work, which was basically a lot of friction to make me change operations. And now it's just click, click, I can swap the bed and swap the tool head and start doing something new and interesting. But you're absolutely right, the first thing I've discovered about this whole space is the first thing you start doing with a new 3D printer is building stuff for your new 3D printer. Whether that's organizing your filaments, whether that's mounting cameras, whether that's little systems to hook things onto the wall behind it. It's amazing how that has turned into the first thing. And then I got the CNC working. Well, the first thing I had to do that was take a piece of wood and build something to hold all the various different CNC bits. And so the first part of the learning experience is always something that's inside that space where you're getting to know the machine, doing stuff for the machine. And then once you get past that phase, then you start looking at, oh, that wasn't so hard. I can do lots of other interesting things, and start playing with that.
Now, these things aren't useful for everything, but like you said, small little widgets and mounting things and stuff like that, very, very useful. Yeah. There's also a big remix culture, which again, reminds me so much of GitHub. Yes. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, another good example of that is I found there's a great little USB-C cable tester, which is sold as a bare board. And so I went onto Thingiverse and found somebody had actually done the hard work of designing a little case that it would snap into, and it was a really nice design with a lid that closed and everything else, and some instructions on how to make that work. But they had a second model which wasn't USB-C to USB-C, but USB-A to USB-C. So I was able to go back in and modify that original model so that the hole cut out on the one side was perfect for the USB-A model. And then what did I do? Well, I just published that back in as a remix, and so the next person that comes along will be able to take advantage of, well, I won't say my hard work, because it really wasn't that hard, but the time and effort that got put into it.
Yeah, and it's great because everybody's sort of building on each other, and there's a lot of times where basically somebody will create a solution, you know, oh, it's a Raspberry Pi case, or it's a thing for this one paper towel holder, or a lamp, or whatever, and they'll upload that and kind of like, well, I don't know what you're going to do with this, but good luck. And then somebody will take that and make a different one built on it with a different design, and it's got some different features. And there's a lot of, you know, thank yous. There's a lot of, you know, I'm going to share a picture of what I made. Yeah. It really is a friendly culture. And again, it is so hacker. It is so in the positive sense.
Yes, completely.
Talk to me a little bit about the enterprise IT world now, where this collides, because one of the things that I've done a lot of with my 3D printer is basically cable management, fans, you know, parts for servers. I made the mounting rails for HP servers for disk drives. Yes. What have you made in the enterprise IT space?
Well, disk drive mounts are a classic, because trying to find those sometimes, you're off to eBay to find that disk mount for that one particular model that is out of print, it's an old machine and stuff like that. So disk trays were one of the first things that I actually started on in the IT space. Other ones are, my environment is a lot of lab work, and because I don't have the huge enterprise budget in my lab, I'm not using 19U rack machines all the time. So I might have a collection of different NUCs and various things found on AliExpress and all sorts of different things. And then being able to build just the right little mounting kit for that particular piece of hardware, which is, is impossible to find because they don't exist. And being able to spend the time, make the pieces, and then publish the stuff when it comes out. The other more practical one, getting back to the fans, which is very important, is Supermicro has a line of really nice small mini servers that are designed for IoT work. But they're pretty powerful, and I've built a couple of lab systems out of them, and I tend to abuse them a lot, which is things like where I'm giving courses and I will set up a lab with 40 virtual ESX servers and 10 virtual VCSAs. And as we all know, VCSA appliances are extremely power consumption heavy and CPU heavy. So the problem was these poor machines, the cooling system really wasn't designed for it at all in any way, shape, or form. And what happened was, I said, okay, finally I've had enough of this with these machines overheating, and designed a box to basically make it a 2U unit instead of a 1U unit. And in that extra U, I was able to mount a nice, quiet, very important in a lab that runs in your office, 14 centimeter fan, and have the airflow coming out the back. And now I've got a nice little cluster running vSAN that runs at about 76 degrees on the CPU. And it's just wonderful. All of a sudden, I've got a completely functional system where before I was really running up against a thermal wall that I couldn't do anything about.
Yeah, and it's there. If you look closely, I think in well, certainly in lab spaces for the people like us who have home labs and things like that, you will see a lot of 3D printed stuff. And again, it's not just about 3D printing either. There's also CNC machines.
Yep.
What other things do you see out there that are sort of this maker culture interacting with tech?
Oh, well, you see it all over the place, because the other one is a million kinds of different tools that you might need for different things. The other one is sometimes just a one-off little part that is no longer in the kit you have for this server that you bought off eBay or something like that. And there's a lot of other things that we get used in the enterprise, but were never designed to go in a rack. The number of places I go into where they've got a little USB box for doing USB over IP for various license keys. It might be the router that came with their fiber service, which is just a little box, and it was never intended to go in a rack. And okay, well, we'll make something that goes in the rack. It might be something as simple as some older switches that weren't designed for it, but they're perfectly serviceable. So building some wings to go on that and make that all fit can be really, really fun.
Yeah, honestly, it is such a cool thing. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't experienced the world of 3D printing yet, I definitely recommend giving it a shot. I will warn you that it's not quite what you think. One of the best parallels I heard was somebody saying, well, buying a laser printer doesn't make you a novelist. No. And buying a 3D printer doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to create all sorts of amazing, cool little gadgets and stuff. But there are lots of good gadgets, and you can check out, as we said, you know, some of these sites, Thingiverse and so on, and see what sort of things you could print. It's not too expensive. It's fun to get involved, and you know, who knows? Maybe you'll find yourself making a little rack mount or cable management widget that somebody else will use. Maybe we'll use it.
That's right. The other thing that I've found, though, is once you get into this, there's one little danger, is that watching 3D printers work is hypnotic, and you keep saying, I'll just watch it run a layer to make sure it's working fine. And you find yourself mesmerized by the movement of the machine 10 minutes later, and you're sitting back going, what happened there? That was just fascinating. Trying to outguess what the system has decided is the best route to print the thing it needs to print. And you're sitting there trying to second guess it and predict, okay, it's going to do this loop, and then it's going to jump over there. And then it's like, oh, no, it went over there. I wonder why he did that. And it's fascinating because there's also a whole bunch of amazing math and algorithmic work that's done in optimizing the design to take a 3D object and figure out what's the best way to output this on a printer. And the same thing goes for the CNC, where you're looking at it going, I wonder how it's going to make this cutout. It's a really fascinating thing to watch.
Well, and I guess we could all use a little bit of relaxation, and I completely agree. I cannot tell you how long I've spent staring at my 3D printer. So thanks a lot for this. If you enjoyed this discussion, we're going to have a bunch more of these tech talks. Sometimes we talk about enterprise tech topics. Sometimes we talk about more fun stuff, but all relevant to the Gestalt IT audience. So go to gestaltit.com or Gestalt IT video on YouTube. Erik, where can we find you for more of this?
You can find me on my blog at infrageeks.com, and I'm on the Mastodons at erik@infrageeks.social. That's Erik with a K.